And okay, so the program tonight will be about the Strasburg Railroad and the accident that occurred last year. So I'll let Jack and Eric take over now, and then when you're ready, you can start screen sharing.
Cool. Just before we start, some housekeeping items. Please, like Richmond said, keep your questions till the end. We'll have plenty of time to answer questions just so we can get through this. And if you're not already muted, please mute yourself. It'll make this a lot easier. And on that note, we will get going. So our presentation is on the accident of the 475 at Strasburg. Happened about a year ago now.
Is the mic working? Yes.
Is this better?
That's better.
Yeah.
Okay, and yeah, maybe you can get to the full screen. Yeah, that's better. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's perfect.
All right, you guys can hear me out here. Cool. So we did our presentation on the 475 accident. Like I said, it happened about a year ago. Just a lot of things that came out of that accident obviously over the years with railroading. Things get written up because things happen. Everything we did was off research. So if there is something wrong, sorry, but please refrain from yelling at us because our feelings get hurt really easily. So on that note, we'll get going. And that's Eric Grover is up first.
Good evening, all. How are we doing tonight?
Good.
Good. Yeah. I'm going to start off with
You use that? Okay.
I'm just going to start off with a little history of the Strasburg Railway.
Use that one. It's easier.
It was
If there's
founded in
video,
1832.
I'm sorry, I still don't see any video. If that's an issue on, it may be an issue on my end, but I don't see any video. Just letting you know. I'll mute again.
Yeah, I think that's on his. I think our IT guy is saying that's probably on your end, so there's not much we're going to be able to do about that, unfortunately.
I can see it on my.
Yeah,
Everyone else is saying they can see it, so
yeah,
Okay, that's fine.
we can
I'm
see
gonna-
the
I'm
pictures.
going to leave and rejoin. I'm going to leave and rejoin. Thank you.
yeah, thank you.
Okay. So the line for the Strasburg Railroad was built in 1832, and it connected from the little town of Strasburg to Philadelphia with the Columbia Railroad operating passenger service and freight service for that 5 miles. This age of the railroad had multiple steam engines purchased and sold over the years. And when the Strasburg took over, they had one of their, Plymouth engines. Okay, I apologize here. In 1958, the Strasburg was founded by 2 people, Donald Halleck and Henry Long. The ICC had granted the 2 gentlemen the line rather than scrapping it. So in March of that year, they met with 11 different investors, and they voted to invest into this new venture for $18,500. Today, that is close to $200,000. They needed a total of $22,500 in purchases, such as ties, spikes, joint plates, gasoline, and other expenses to restore the line. There was a 5-year vision to get this track back in service and freight back on the line. Their first engine was a 20-ton Plymouth engine bought from the Reading Company in Reading, Pennsylvania. It needed wheel work and a good tune-up, but other than that, it was all set to go. They had purchased a coach that they wanted to use as a caboose, but the public saw it and thought that that would be a great coach. So they went out, and on December 30th, they bought school bus seats and put them in the floor, screwed them down into the floor. But they had a short emergency, which ended up everybody piling on top of each other because they weren't secured enough to the floor. Okay, towards 1960s, the first year brought in 9,000 paying customers. Once steam was introduced in 1960, there were 60,000 customers. Steam was what everybody wanted, not diesel. In 1960, the Strasburg leased steam locomotive 1223 from the Pennsylvania Railroad. Along with that, in June of 1960, they acquired engine number 7312, a CN 060, and an EMD 44 tonner, which they used in service. In 1965, they had their first live steam number 4 Camelback that came into service from the Colorado Fuel and Iron Company. And then their final locomotive for that year was number 90, a 1924 Baldwin 210 Great Western Railway Company. In 1970, 2 engines were their main power, the 90 and the 1223. With a vision to run passenger service and extra trains, they decided to put a siding in at Cherry Hill, which was the halfway point between the 2 ending and starting points. The 800-foot siding was very useful in either storing equipment when it wasn't being used or freight service when that got started. In 1971, they had their first stock split. They did a 100-to-1 stock incentive using 900 shares of stock to the public for $2.50 a share. And then between 1958 and 1970, the total ridership was 1.9 million, excuse me. I'm good. In the 1980s, the Strasburg celebrated their 150th anniversary in June of 92. In 1983, they broke new ground on the locomotive shop with a dedication. On Fridays, the railroad introduced a mixed train to Lehman Place, which brought customers back and forth with freight and passenger equipment. Into the 1990s, 1991, they had 475,000 people ride the railroad. There was an uptick in their contract shop for work for the Norfolk Southern, Union Pacific, Durango and Silverton. And this was amongst other work such as brake valves and custom parts. In 1998 brought the introduction of Day Out with Thomas to the railroad, which was a big hit with Strasburg making locomotives. In 2000, Groff's picnic area was purchased, and that was made railroad property so people could stop and have lunch. In 2003, Tower J, the only tower on the property, was opened up for self-guided tours through the Lancaster chapter, National Historical Society. Thank you. So that is pretty much, in a nutshell, the history of of the start of the Strasburg Railroad.
So another thing, obviously, real quick to add on is everybody obviously knows Strasburg for steam. They fix steam, they build steam, they rebuild steam, and they run steam. It's obviously, like Eric said, that's their big trademark for the railroad itself. But not just that, but they have a huge freight service. They actually, for those of you that aren't aware, they just at the Lemon Place Junction, they just opened up a freight yard because their freight service has been getting so popular and big that they didn't have room at the Strasburg yard to be able to hold that, plus do passenger services. So the railroad just continuously grows. We're gonna get into some of the history of the 475. So 475, it was built in 1906 by the Baldwin Locomotive Works for $15,394. And that was in 1906. It's a 480 Class M locomotive. So 480 means it's got 4 pilot trucks, 8 drivers, and then it has 0 trailing trucks. The locomotive is the only one of its type left in operation and one of only 2 in existence. So it was built for the Norfolk Western Railroad. It was built for operating to pull freight and coal trains until the 20s, and then it was reassigned to pull mixed freight trains on a 9-mile branch. In 1957, the locomotive was backdated to look like a 1880s locomotive, which included adding a top-mount oil-burning headlight, as well as a diamond-shaped smokestack. The purpose of this was for the anniversary of Roanoke, Virginia, which is one of the homes of the Norfolk and Western. This event, 475, operated numerous excursions and photo extras. So the picture here on the left is what it was rebuilt to look like. And obviously they added the brass bands too. They classied it up a little bit. About after that, 475 didn't see much use. Obviously the generation of diesel electric locomotives came into play, steam got put aside, and 475 was kept in storage until about 1961 when it was sold for scrap. Over the years, multiple people had purchased this locomotive, and many attempts were made to restore the locomotive to operating condition. Unfortunately, due to financial reasons, those attempts were unsuccessful until 1991, when the locomotive was purchased by the Strasburg Railroad for $100,000. And the plans were to restore this locomotive back to operating conditions to use on their daily passenger service. So the engine arrived in 1991 and it immediately went into the shop. And the rebuild process took about a little over 2 years. And they went through everything from the running gear, reconditioning of the wheels, a boiler inspection, as well as new tubes, some new stay bolts, and a bunch of other tests mandated by the FRA, as well as satisfaction requirements for Strasburg Railroad themselves. In November of 1993, the engine had its first test run ever, and approximately a week later, the engine was entered into revenue service. The cost to just overhaul the locomotive itself when Strasburg bought it was $700,000. Today, the 475 is still an active running locomotive on the Strasburg Railroad. It's their second biggest locomotive. The first one is the number 90, which is a 210 decapod. And over the years, they've changed different things on this locomotive. The headlight has been changed a few times. As you can tell in the photo on the right here, and not a lot of people know this, but when the locomotive was rebuilt by Strasburg, the headlight was in this position until about, I want to say the mid, like 2004, I think was it. And then they lowered it a little bit because it gave them, the engineers, more visibility at night. And then in, I want to say it was 2019. I don't have that date, unfortunately. They moved the headlight to the center of the smoke box door to restore its original look from when it was built. And the purpose for this was it went through an overhaul, which is required by the FRA. They did the overhaul, then they made cosmetic changes because, as many of you know, the 611, which is a huge J-class locomotive built by Norfolk and Western, it came to visit Strasburg for photo events, so they wanted to change 475 back to its original look. which is what the 475 looks like today. 475 is a pretty cool engine because of its size. It's been used in multiple movies. The biggest one people know it from is Thomas and the Magic Railroad, where 475 and 3 coaches were relettered to Indian Valley Railroad. And the cool thing with this actually was they brought the engine to Harrisburg Station unannounced, and they ran the engine under its own power back to Strasburg for filming of the movie. And that was one of the only few times it's left Strasburg property under its own power. So that's pretty cool. So the accident, obviously we'll get into the good part. So on November 2nd of 2022, the locomotive number 475 was assigned as the daily locomotive for the Strasburg Railroad trips. At about 11 o'clock, the train departed for the Lemon Place Junction and was supposed to arrive around 11:15. Obviously, as you guys know, for those of you who have been to Strasburg, Strasburg runs up and down the line. They go to Lemon Place Junction, they run around the train. And one of the expectations by the railroad is the engine crew waves back to the passengers. Unfortunately, a problem that this gives is it distracts them from looking at the tracks ahead. It's a problem, but at the same time, the railroad wants to have good public relations with their customers. And it's not every day you get to see a steam locomotive. So the problem on this day, unfortunately, was the night before, what they have for a track crew, they have a mini excavator with wheels on it, so it can go on the railroad. They were doing some brush cutting along the line, and they parked it at the night on a stub track up at Lemon Place Junction. And it has they have a crane train up there, as well as a few lorry cars. Well, the problem was when they parked it that night, they didn't throw the switch back. Going up for the first trip of the day and doing the runaround, the crews were waving at the people on the train like they were expected to. They didn't see the switch, and unfortunately, they collided into the excavator. Fortunately, the damage wasn't bad and no one was hurt. The damage sustained to the locomotive itself was strictly to the smoke box area. So for those of you that aren't aware, on a steam locomotive, obviously has boiler tubes in the boiler. So in the back and the front, there's a sheet where the tubes are held in place at the certain locations they're supposed to be. So in the front tube sheet wasn't damaged, which is good. If it was damaged, they would have had to take all the tubes out, either recondition the sheet or put a whole new one in, and then put all the tubes back in. Then that would have been a month or two project just to do. Fortunately, that wasn't damaged, and the only damage that the engine sustained was to the smoke box door and the smoke box front. The smoke box door, they actually put back together. We have some photos. So the picture on the right is them braze welding it back together, because the chief mechanical officer wanted people to see that obviously what the railroad can do, but also they wanted to see that you can fix stuff from an accident rather than just replacing everything. The big piece of metal on the front of the boiler had to be replaced. They replaced it with a new piece of iron steel, as well as what you see on the left. Those are handlebar holders. So on the front of a locomotive, it kind of looks like a smiley face, and that's a handlebar. So crews that go on the front, whether it's cleaning the light, doing inspections inside the smoke box or whatever, they have a place to hold on to. Those old brackets broke. The railroad has the technology, they machine new ones. And it just shows you what the railroad can do. It's absolutely amazing. So here's more photos of them braze welding back together the smoke box door. They did this, and they did this right in their shop. And when they brought it back to the railroad, actually, it went right into the shop to be repaired. So when the accident happened, they radioed back to the railroad that they had an emergency. Their diesel locomotive 8618 was dispatched to go grab the train and bring it back. Well, railroad employees went up to see what was going on. They kept the steam engine, they kept it contained. They didn't dump the fire. They just let it slowly go out, just because with having to take photos and do an investigation, they didn't want to have to worry about maintaining water levels and keeping the fire hot. So let the fire go out. And the reason that they didn't just dump the fire is the problem with that is when you dump a fire in a steam locomotive, it dumps the ash into the ashtray. And then what that allows is cold air to rush up into the boiler. And for those of you that don't know, when metal is heated up quick or cooled off quick, it doesn't like it. It expands, it contracts. Steam locomotives, they have to be, when they're fired up, they have to be brought up slow. That way you don't expand things too quickly, as well as when you cool them down, you just let the fire slowly go out, let it do its natural thing. So to prevent more damage, that's what they did. That night, they brought it back to the railroad. They covered it up with a tarp, as you can see in this photo on the right. That was just so the public didn't see what was going on at the time. Other than that, as you can see, the engine was brought back with no problems. And the cool thing, if you can see or not, is if you look at the tarp right now, it's kind of sucked into that smoke box. That shows you when the steam engine, the pistons are doing their cycle. When you hear the chuffing, it's drawing air, kind of creating a draft. So that right now it's on the cycle where it's pulling air in, and that's why it pulled the tarp out. There's a video online. I don't know if we added it to the slideshow or not, but you can actually watch it, and the tarp will slowly puff in and puff out. It's pretty cool. So here's a few more photos. So this photo here is the boiler front. It's just, like I said, it's a piece of steel from nowadays. It's nothing they brazed back together. They drilled the holes to line up, obviously, so it would fit back on, and they had to do some welding as well, so it would accept the smoke box door. So this is them refitting everything and putting it up back on the front of the locomotive. So in the picture on the right, the front of the smoke box itself, that big piece of metal you saw in the previous picture, that's already mounted on. You can see they have the flag holders back on, as well as the railings. And this all happened within a matter of 5 days, I think it was. Me, my dad, and my grandfather went down like a day or two after they fixed it, and the engine was in service. So it just shows you what the railroad can do. And obviously, for those of you that like Thomas the Tank Engine, you can see the two replicas in the background. And yeah, so that's them remounting the headlight. The headlight wasn't damaged. Same number plate. And that picture was taken 2 days later. A few things obviously to add before Eric goes over what came from the accident. I think you're doing it. Yeah. Just a few things to add. Everything happens it's an accident, right? There's no blame anywhere really. It just happens. Things happen. Like I said, things happen obviously, but the thing that I just want to express is when we're doing this presentation, we didn't do it to call anybody out. We didn't do it because we wanted to make fun of the railroad. We did it because it's an important lesson, not just in railroading, but in life in general, because things do happen. And one thing we want you to learn out of this presentation is mistakes happen and you fix it. Don't hide from it, own up to it and fix it. But yeah, Eric's going to go over a little bit of what came from the accident, and then we have some pretty cool videos to show you guys.
All righty, so just a few contributing factors to the accident. When the train was running around the runaround, it was only going 10 miles an hour. When you see the videos, it looks like it's a lot faster than that, but that's what it was clocked at through the FRA report. In this section of track, there aren't any interlocking signals, so they wouldn't have even seen a signal had it been there. The damage to the engine at the time was $30,914. As you'll see, the virtual rail fan has a camera down at Lehman Place, and you can watch the train all day long. Right after this accident, they shut it down quickly due to the railroad asking them, and to any investigation that they had to see. Also, there weren't any injuries in this accident.
Good.
Yeah.
Cool.
So just to reiterate what Eric said on the switch points, a big key factor, certain switch stands have a certain way of marking. that switch stand did not have a signal. So the only way to really tell is if you look at the points. If they're facing straight in this case, that means you're going to that stump track. If they're facing off to the left, that means you're going to go continue around the runaround. It's especially at nighttime, it's tough to really tell, unfortunately, but it's one of the many things you have to look at as being an engineer. So now we're going to get into some of the videos we have. These are videos we found on YouTube. If you haven't seen them yet, there's a ton of videos on this. Some are a lot more funny than others. But we just figured we'd show you guys some and kind of give you a better idea of the accident. We'll start with this one.
You still sharing sound?
Yes.
Yeah, I would actually start sharing again. And then make sure the audio is selected.
Okay.
I would recommend that.
All right, we're gonna just do a few things. I don't think the audio is working, so just stand by with us real quick.
I heard the audio was fine.
You guys did hear the audio from the video? Should have been some music.
I heard it. I heard the video, the music. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Perfect then.
Before we get started, please note that this video is not meant to publicly shame Strasburg. Even despite this accident, they've managed to remain professional, as stuff like this could happen on any railroad. This video is just meant to document my experience on what I saw the day the accident took place on November 2nd, 2022, just minutes after it happened. With that being said, sit back and enjoy. As you can see in this video, not long after hearing about the accident from a friend of mine and a few fellow subscribers, I hopped into my car and darted down 202 and Route 30 toward Lemon Place Junction in an attempt to see the damage myself. For those that need context on what happened, well, let's let this video clip tell the story.
And then turn right on Ambassador Lane and come down here.
Okay. Yeah. Ouch. Upon arrival, I found the path to the picnic area was blocked off, and I was stopped by a few employees saying that the area was closed off, but the pathway was still fair game. No biggie, as I had a feeling that the Amtrak Pennsylvanians were due, so let's roll clips of both of them. According to the guy that was standing next to me during these catches, they're supposed to run 2 sets of Pennsylvanians starting next year. Trust me, they need them. Anyways, I know since I'm known for making videos of train wrecks, many were asking that I make a documentary on this incident. Likely that won't happen, maybe in the future, but I will give a brief synopsis on what we know happened. Basically, some maintenance away work had been done the day before this happened on November 1st involving the backhoe. When they were done for the day, the crew had locked the switch, but had forgotten to reset it back to its normal position so the excursions wouldn't run into it the next morning. The next day, on the 2nd of November, when the first excursion arrived for the runaround, the crew of 475 did notice the switch was not lined correctly, and yeah, we all know what came next. It was very lucky, though, that the flue sheet wasn't hit, as that easily could have resulted in an explosion, killing the crew and injuring or killing passengers with shrapnel. Now, because of the accident and the fact 475 was partially blocking the runaround siding, the excursions were turning around not far from Carpenter's Crossing. Former New York Central SW8 8618 was pushing and pulling the Consus solo, and also rescued the train after the accident. Here she is with the last train of the day at the Caboose Motel just outside Strasburg. Right next to me, out of frame, was the lady that took the footage of the accident you saw earlier. As we fast forward through the footage, we can see 8618 moving some equipment, which consisted of 2 Thomases and their Plymouth number 1, to make room for 475 so she could go straight in for repairs. Yeah, what would be the plural word for our names, both me and the tank engine? Who knows.
One quick thing to add, if you look over their engine house, which is in the distance, you can see on the left side, there is smoke and steam coming out of the smokestack. Strasburg fired up number 89 to run for the operation. This is just part of their company that if customers are coming to the railroad to expect steam, that they get steam. So immediately after this accident, part of their shop crew went and got the engine, the number 89 engine, ready to go for the next day's operation. It's winter time, so they were only running 3 trains a day, so there wasn't enough time to get the 89 fired up. But like I said, it just shows the commitment the railroad has to their customers, which is it's pretty cool.
Once the shops were cleaned up, 8618 went to pick up 475 from Lemon Place. After a wait that seemed like an eternity, as I didn't know if I should have chased them or not, here comes 8618 again, taking a now tarped 475 into Strasburg for repairs. Oh no. And well, that's it.
And then turn right on Ambassador Lane. Come down here.
So I'm not sure if you guys saw or not, but that lorry car behind the excavator, that got pushed up in under the truck between the frame of the flat car itself and the truck itself. It was, I found kind of funny is, like I said, we went there a few days after and it was still there. And people were pretty excited to see something like that. But nothing on that track, I meant to mention earlier, nothing on that track was damaged besides the lorry car. It's all there for static display anyway, but nothing was derailed or anything when it got pushed back.
And then
So that's basically it for our presentation. I guess at this point, I'm going to stop sharing. We'll open it up to questions. Like I said, if we did something wrong, please don't yell at us. Like I said, this was all a research project. But this was something me and Eric thought it would be cool to learn about. So at this point, I guess if we have any questions, we can open them up. Yeah.
Guess we did well.
I
It's a
guess we
very
did
interesting
really well.
story you have there. And I understand it was a 5-day rebuild, but was damage blamed by the workmen with their excavator? Did they get charged for that or something?
I think so.
No, they didn't get, sorry. Nobody was charged or fired from this incident. it was more of a learning curve for them. Drug and alcohol testing was not required because of the speed of the train and the crew. They had plenty of hours that they were working. They've only worked 4 hours. They can work a 12-hour day. So everything was complacent. Everything was up and up. It was just an accident that was unforeseen. And now that they have the switch is spiked at the spur there, so that this can't happen again.
And to
Yes.
quickly add on to that, one of the things that came out after this is the railroad had to redo their safety course. On most roads, anytime there's an incident, on some roads anyway, if there's an incident, they normally go in and they'll, at least with the crews that were involved, if not all crews, is they'll re-review their rule book, their safety procedures.
How many people worked in the railroads?
What's that?
Hi, Rich Gibson here. I'm wondering if were the maintenance away crew, were they volunteers or were they staff?
It's all staff. The railroad, I think the only spot they might have volunteers is just in their mechanical shop, on the carpentry team. They have a lot of Amish people that work restoration of the passenger coaches because most of them are wooden coaches. But other than that, everything's all full-time paid employees.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
And I picture 475 with an eye patch after he severed his face from the excavator arm. But still, I feel sorry for the engine after the impact.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing out of that, obviously, like everybody got, is like it said, it shows what Strasburg can do. No time to wait, get the investigation done and get back out so they can produce steam again with the engine. And like I said, they had trips that coming weekend with 611, so they didn't have a lot of turnaround time to get it fixed. But they, you know, when you put crews together and you get your mind on something, you can get a lot done. And obviously they have the capability to do it in their shop. There's not a lot they can't do. But yeah, like you're saying, it's too bad. Obviously you feel bad for the engine and everybody involved, but it's an all-in accident. It's a learning curve and you take what you learn from it and you move forward.
I understand that. Even though 611 was still in Strasburg at
Yeah. Yeah,
the
exactly.
time
Like
the accident occurred, they could have used her as a backup or a sub.
Yeah, exactly. Do we have any questions in the Cumberland Central crowd? Wow, I think we did pretty good.
I think so.
Yeah. Jack, Eric, you two seem pretty familiar with the Strasburg. Have you been down there a lot? Was there some reason that you have particular interest in the Strasburg?
I've always had a passion for steam. My grandfather started going down in, what was it, 76 for the Springfield, not Springfield, the York train show. And then my grandmother found places to go down there in Strasburg and Amish country. It all kind of was a perfect storm. And pretty much every April growing up for vacation is where we went. And then it just, it's like one of those things that stuck, you know, going up to Conway Scenic with my grandfather and my cousin, my dad, my uncle, and being around trains up there. And then Strasburg has steam, which was an added bonus, and it's a different place. So, and that was one of the reasons I think we picked this too, is it was a place we were semi-familiar about, me and Eric. And that's the cool thing too, is like, you know, we didn't know a lot about the accident, but we kind of got together and we were like, hey, we want to do a presentation on this. It looks like something cool that we want to research on. And so we did, between getting interrupted with fire calls and other things, and we put our presentation together. But it was cool. It was a lot of good learning. And like I said, it was cool when we went down there by fluke that following weekend. Like, we already had the trip planned, but to go down and then we saw everything. We saw everything around the accident still. Like I said, that lorry car, the excavator was back at the railroad. You could see the braze welds on the boiler, the smoke box front. But I mean, and that was not even a week later. So it was pretty cool. And like I said, just the turnaround time was amazing.
Were those the photos inside the shop? Were those from the railroad itself?
Yep. So you can go on a lot of the photos we used. You either can find on the railroad's website or the FRA's website or even Google, Facebook. Those photos we used were on if you go on to the Strasburg Railroad Mechanical Facebook page, that's where we got them from, as well as I think there's an article on their website. And obviously, if we didn't hit everything in our presentation, there's plenty of stuff on the internet. There's reports you can read. There's more videos. There's pictures. There's a ton of things out there you can see if there's questions you still have after tonight that you might have thought of. But yeah.
What are your names?
Oh, I'm Jack.
Eric Rover.
Excellent. I was an East Broad Top Railroad on Saturday. You know where that is?
Yeah, about what, 3 hours, right, from Strasburg?
I understand it's in the area. Just friends of mine went over to Strasburg after they were at East Broad Top. Dynamo Productions ran a charter there. Dynamo Productions, are you familiar with that video group?
Yep.
And they ran a charter 1950 style. They had actors there. They had a couple of vehicles there. Early morning session, a day session, and a night session. It was an amazing, amazing day. And Daniel Day, he was a friend of mine. He invited me down, and I went down, and I was thoroughly enjoyed. I'll do a slideshow on this program in a couple of months. I'll talk to Alan Small about it and share you the pictures from that day.
Awesome.
By the way, Alan, I understand Alan Small is in the kitchen.
Day.
What's that, Colin?
I met Daniel Day.
He is a very nice man.
Woodville in Farmington.
Yeah, he is a nice man. He lives in Durham. I live in Newmarket, right next door. So I understand Alan is in the kitchen cooking. He knows how to cook.
Yeah, he's aware that you want to do a presentation. I'll have him get a hold of you.
But no, Alan's in the kitchen, but he knows how to cook.
He plays a cook on TV.
He plays a cook on TV. Excellent. So leave him alone.
But yeah,
Okay.
so going to the East Broad Top real quick, actually,
Yes.
a lot of the people that work at East Broad Top used to work at Strasburg. I think you mentioned that. But the cool thing with East Broad Top, and I've kind of been reading in Trains Magazine and some other articles, is obviously having people that work at Strasburg work there. It's a lot similar to the Strasburg Road. Obviously, it's a smaller gauge railroad. But that's another really cool place, especially with steam, and they're growing again, which is cool. And I'm pretty sure they still have their, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they still have their old original mechanical shop, which ran off of steam, right?
Correct. This is a tourist railroad, started 3 years ago. They had 5 brand new passenger cars set from the 50s era, built in Washington State and trucked into the area. They had 30,000 tourists last year, and the big business was private charters. And it was really neat to see the roundhouse. It was an incredible day. I was really enjoyed. And the next day we stopped by Steamtown on the way home. Figured why not, right? And that was really cool too. So what a weekend I had. What a weekend I had.
Yeah. Well, like you said, hopefully you can do a presentation. That'd be really cool.
I will. It's not hopefully, I will.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for your presentation.
Absolutely. If we don't have any more questions, I think we're gonna wrap things up and call it a night.
Could I just interject real quick?
Absolutely.
I'm a VRF guy, and every morning when I start up my computers to work, I put on both cameras at Strasburg. It's peaceful. It makes me calm.
Exactly.
On days when I want to just jump through the phone and grab somebody by the neck, I watch Strasburg. And I have to tell you, I was watching on the Lehman camera live when that happened. And what I thought was interesting, they immediately pulled the camera, or shortly thereafter. And you should have seen the chat. People are saying, well, why can't we see the video? And why won't they? I don't think people understand how much work goes into doing what the Strasburg company does with both freight and passenger service. And what they wanted to do was make sure that when they did go public and they told them what happened, that they had all the facts. And I just thought it was very strange that a lot of the rail fans they don't really understand what's involved in running, nowadays a successful steam and diesel freight and passenger short line railroad. They just don't understand. And so I was glad to see your presentation tonight. Again, because it just reminded me of having watched that live when it occurred that day. So, and last thing, I just want to let everybody know, I just got back from a trip from Vancouver to Toronto on the Canadian, the Via Rail Canadienne, all the way across Canada, 5 days, 4 nights. And I'm telling you, folks, I went first class. It was my 40th wedding anniversary, and my wife agreed to go, which was a miracle in and of itself. But she had a great time. I had the best damn time I've had in a long time on that train, and the service was absolutely fabulous. So that's just a commercial for Via Rail, but they did a wonderful job for that train. Hopefully some of you have ridden it, and I couldn't convince my wife to go and take the ocean to Halifax. Then I could have said, ocean to ocean, but that was as close as I could get.
That's awesome. Just to add on to that real quick, I think, a lot of things is now getting put on the internet. Everyone has a smartphone now. We have live cams. Just be mindful of what you put on the internet, obviously, before there's an accident. And it doesn't have to just be at a tourist railroad or a big road, anything in general. We see it all the time in the fire service.
Sure.
But just be mindful, because you might not always know the facts. And it just, sometimes someone from the railroad might see that, and then everything kind of comes full circle.
It can hurt the railroad, which is not what we want to have happen. It can hurt the railroad, not help the railroad.
Exactly. And especially with something like that and how big Strasburg is, obviously something's going to come out of it at some point. It might take a while, but there's going to be something that's going to come out of it, whether it's a report or just a public service announcement from the railroad itself.
I'm sure the FRA will issue a report, and we'll all read it, and we'll realize that it was, just as you said in your presentation, this is an accident.
Absolutely.
Unforetold accident, and unfortunately crap happens once in a while.
Yeah,
I want to keep it clean for the audience. So, anyway.
Well, yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. I'll unconnect here, or unmute.
Yeah, not a problem. I think at this point, we're going to give it back to Richmond. Just before we do, I don't know if Eric wants to say anything.
Just thank you for watching our presentation tonight. It was a lot of fun putting it together. Like I said, if you have any questions, you can always email us, and we can get back to you. But thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll turn it back to Richmond.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Jack and Eric. That was a real interesting presentation. And so hope to see everybody next month. Again, dual on Zoom and at the fire station. Looks like it'd be kind of focused on railroad stations, but there's a bigger description in the newsletter. So, okay, we'll finish up tonight, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you, everybody, for
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
September 20th. Thank you. Good night.